So today's presentation is about portable contesting, and I'll admit my agenda is an effort to sort of bridge the the gap that still exists probably between contesters and those folks who who have really dug into the portable operating, including through summits on the air and of course parks on the air. And so the goal of tonight's presentations is really to sort of see what's possible, what kind of setups work portably during a state contest or a state QSO party or something like it, and really to engender some conversation and some discussion and some sharing of ideas. So we're very fortunate to be joined by three presenters tonight. We have first of all, let's see, the order that I have in mind is we're going to start with Steve 84XT, who will be our first presenter, and then we'll move to Burton KY4ID, and we'll end with Steve AA4TI. The format of this is sort of 12 to 15 or 12 to 18 minute presentations, just their introduction to what works, what they think works, and what they have done in terms of portable contesting, and then we'll go to a discussion afterwards. I think the way we're going to do this is we're just going to run through the presentations, and then we'll have questions and discussions afterwards. So let's just go right to Steve 84XT. Let's start with you, Steve.
Okay.
And I'm going to mute myself, turn the floor over to you, and thanks for joining us.
Contesting portable. I mean, why do we do that? Leave the air conditioning, leave the heat. I wondered if I was the only one in the world doing it, but I don't. I guess I'm not. Let me give you a little bit about me and kind of the things I'm into with ham radio, and then I'll go into all the tips and tricks that I know. Okay. Again, a little bit about me. I'm 63. I'm still working. Hunting and fishing and camping. I like to do anything outdoors, and I've been licensed since 2014, and also very active in the Columbus Amateur Radio Club. I'm one of the people that plan the outdoor activities and all of our activities. I'm on a group there that does that, and we're an active club, and we've got something going on every month that involves ham radio besides just a meeting. So I immensely enjoy that. I guess our claim to fame in this club here is having Mr. John Laney as a member, and do enjoy when he comes out to field day and runs field day for us on the CW station, and he's remarkable to watch. I don't do any CW. I'm mostly sideband, but I do enjoy it every time he comes out and helps us out. Also very active with Parks on the Air. I got started in Parks on the Air about the time that it got, a little bit before it actually got formed into this. It was, I guess, doing a little bit of the worldwide flora and fauna. And I just really got interested in anything outside operating ham radio. I guess once I learned from the first school that this stuff used 12 volts, I said, hey, I can take this with me other places. So Parks on the Air, I've been doing that since 2017. Also, like I'm not busy enough, I've got a YouTube channel. I'm trying to give back to the ham radio hobby. It's called Ham Radio Portable, and I've got lots of videos of my outdoor activations where there's Parks on the Air. I do some contesting videos where we just kind of show up what kind of setup we have, tech tips, anything from building antennas and small antennas, just trying to help keep people started. And that keeps me busy too, trying to do 2 in 1. There's a good handful of the contesting videos that I've done. The most recent one it was the CQ Worldwide sideband contest back a few months ago, and that one was real good. But I've done everything from QSO parties to Winterfield Day, and actually learned a lot from this group last year when we had some people talking about their antennas for 160, and we designed another antenna. A friend of mine, Steve, I'll talk about him in a minute. Just for that 160 contest, and I'll bounce on over to that slide. The one thing I can say about contesting or contesting portable is find you a friend and find somebody you enjoy doing it with. It's just much more fun doing it with somebody. I'm not one that's going to contest, by myself that much. I'll dabble around in it, but Steve and I have been hunting and fishing for the longest time, been friends for a long time. And when I talk about we or say the words we, Steve's out there tonight, KM4SLW. He's my partner in all this contesting, and he puts up with all this camera work and stuff I do and just looks at me and grins. But we have a good time with it. So when I talk about we, it's just the two of us. Find somebody you like to contest with or a group of guys, and makes it a lot more fun. All right, top reasons to contest portable. I think it's just not hard to do. The radios have become smaller and lightweight. We've got battery technology now, and these Bio-NO type LiFePO 4 batteries that are just small. You don't have to lug around big old batteries anymore. I like getting away from home where you got that low noise floor, and maybe even get up on a hilltop, get some height on your advantage. It's just it's incredible some of the quiet places Steve and I have gotten out to and experienced, how quiet ham radio can be at certain times if the atmosphere is cooperating. And you can incorporate it with other hobbies. I mean, take it with camping. I mean, Steve and I were in a hunting club, and it's not anymore. So we've kind of let this kind of take up where our hunting camps used to go. This right here, let's see, this is a slide of me back when I probably first got started with anything portable. Is I dragged whatever I had out, and you can't see it, but it's a big old deep cycle battery that come out of my boat, and I would drag that along before I bought anything much better than that. So I've been out since 2016. I think this was what is that thing they do, 4th of July special event. I think I went up on top of Roosevelt State Park and got 9 of the states in one afternoon. So with just a wire antenna. This is a picture of Steve and I, probably when we first got contesting really good, is he come up with the idea, say, hey, I see this event called Winterfield Day. This might be fun. We were still in the hunting camp, so we said, why not? We drug all the radio stuff out that we had and strung up some wire antennas and
off the audio, Steve.
The host muted me. Okay.
No, that was an accident. Go ahead.
That's okay. This is Steve and I at our hunting camp about the last year before it closed up, and really got our bug going for content.
We lost you.
2017 when it was just getting popular. Let's see. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. One of the places we have the opportunity to do some portable contesting, I'm also in a black powder rifle club up in Catala, Georgia, which is not far from my house here in Columbus. I'm a member of the Muskogee Long Rifles, and we shoot black powder guns only up at this range. And with it being a 100-yard range and 50 yards wide, we can put up any kind of antenna we want. And we also have the tallest Georgia pines you can shake a stick at up there because it's on private property. We have a campground, and you can actually bring a camper up if you want with hookups, with power and water hookups. And so we do a lot of contesting up there. In fact, our winter field day with my club is up there every year. So, but we usually use a tent when Steve and I go out contesting portable. We've been in wildlife management areas. We've been all over the place. So go back one. All right, when we drag out some good gear, we'll take that's his 7300. We don't shy away from taking the good stuff out. Steve will bring his boom microphone. I've got a Heil microphone we're probably going to use this year, and we bring the good stuff out. We used my in the past contest my DX10. I bought it this year, and we finally just got a chance to try it out. So we try to be comfortable and bring what we like from home. And speaking of ball games, the CQ Worldwide contest is always on the weekend of the Georgia-Florida game. So I bring out a little TV, and Steve puts an antenna up that we can pick up a local station. And I'll be over there looking at the ball game while I'm logging, and then he'll have to nudge me away from it if it gets if I lose my attention. We work pretty good as a team, logging and switching off. We're both just as good on either one. So let's get into a couple of the trade secrets here for us. What's our favorite antenna? Well, our favorite antenna is going to be as much wire as you can get it, as high as you can get it. We like to use the Georgia pines and do is get them as high as we can. And our favorite antenna that we mostly go to on all these portable activations when we're setting up the camp is going to be a 40-meter Delta loop. I mean, we've used that antenna. We don't feed it right there in the center there. We set it up horizontal, and the locations we got, such as our range up there, we can actually get it about 65 foot off the ground. So it's a half wave on 40, which makes it a really good antenna for all the bands up to 10 meters. So that is our go-to antenna when we set up camping overnight somewhere, and we try to pick our spots where we can put that antenna up. If it's not that, then we use a ZS6 BKW. I don't have a picture of that. That's that enhanced G5 RV. We use that for field day because we have so many people and so many cars around that we can get it up even higher. But we discovered this year during the CQ Worldwide contest, we tested out another antenna, a 10-meter antenna, and I think it's going to be in our repertoire every time we go out, since the bands are getting better on the upper bands. We dabbled in. I didn't get to really go hard and heavy in it, but this is my radio here that we used in the CQ Worldwide sideband contest, and you can just look at all of those signals that are on 10 meters, and I can just about say about any one of those signals we made a contact with somebody with a separate antenna that we had from the Delta loop. We ran the Delta loop mostly for everything else, but on the 10-meter side, we
lost your audio.
And we hauled that thing up an 85-foot pine tree out there by our lease. And it gets back to, we literally made a contact with anybody that we tried to. And we was just operating 100 watts. And so we looked at each other, considering that it's you can build this antenna for $10 or so. I got the design off the internet from a guy that put this out a long time ago. His call sign's N1LO. I forget what they stand for. It's real cute. You have to look him up on QRZ. But I put that video out, this one right here, and it really caught fire. I've never had a video catch on as fast as this one. I do it for fun, but this video right here, go back and look at it if you want to try something a little different for 10 meters, since we're in the upper bands. it really worked well for us. I think Steve and I is going to carry it along. This is design. I know I flipped off of it a couple of times, but you can go on that YouTube channel, or you can go on the internet. And the guy that actually put this on the internet a long time ago, he actually contacted me and told me he appreciated me doing it and getting it out there to so many people. And so that's our secret weapons. Is I'll recap: you find somebody you like to contest with if you're going to go portable, because you're going to be having to help put up camp and such as that. Find good places that you can spread out that are quiet with a good antenna. We just don't go with a compromised antenna. We're gonna spend time and put up a really good antenna, and just have fun with it. Incorporate it with something else maybe. But that's what I've got for this evening, and we'll say I kept it within 15 seconds.
Well, Steve, thank you. And thanks for putting that together. That's fascinating. Just tell us, so you have a YouTube channel. Tell us the name of that YouTube channel one more time.
The YouTube channel name is Ham Radio Portable, but all you have to do is search my call sign, AD4XT, and it'll carry you so close to it, you'll be right on top of it. And you'll see a picture of me standing on top of FD Roosevelt State Park.
And so any of us could watch that video on
Oh yeah, go watch that video, because Steve built the antenna. Steve is mainly my antenna builder. I build antennas too, but I'll give him an idea. He'll build it. I'll go out and field test it first, and then we'll go out and use it together if it's any good. And this one we hit out of the park, and with as many views as on that particular video, I guess we hit something.
All right, wonderful. Well, hopefully, Steve, you could stay around, because I bet people have questions.
I'm staying around. I'm not going anywhere.
All right. Well, what I think is going to work best is if we just do all three presentations, and then we have questions and discussions. All right, Burton, you are on? I see you, KY4ID. Burton's a neighbor of mine, lives just down the road in South Carolina. I think I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Mike, and you're already sharing your screen, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Excellent. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for asking me to do this. I really appreciate it. It's a real honor. Andy, if you would help me stay to my time, because I've been told by numerous people I tend to get long-winded.
All right, I will do that, because we want to keep you under 18 minutes or so. Okay, I'm watching the time.
All right, awesome. I got my timer going too. All right, so I work in the medical field, and anytime you hear a medical lecture, it's got this disclosure screen. So this is just me having fun, but the main ones are these last three. I'm pretty new to this. You may already know all of this, and actually I have no idea what I'm doing. So take it with a grain of salt. So my background, as Andy mentioned, we are neighbors. We live probably about 20 miles apart. I'm just inside South Carolina from Augusta. I live with my wife and 6 children. My dad and grandfather were advanced class ops in the early 1980s. They got out of it when I was probably about 7 or 8, but I think I've thought about radio at least every week since then. It really stuck with me. So in 2021, I got licensed as KY4ID. That's a sequential call. I get asked all the time if that's vanity. It's not. I'm not quite sure why I get asked that, but this is my home station, very simple. And these are the things I'm interested in. This first one is really what I enjoy, just CW contesting, contests where you have the option to run or operate SMP, and really I try and limit those to 10 hours or less. I work about 50 to 60 hours a week. Just got back from Savannah. I'm back down there tomorrow, and then I've got 6 kids. So it's hard to find time to spend as much time on the radio as I want to. I really enjoy the QRP sprints. Occasionally I'll do some rag chewing on CW. I do some POTA, not as much as I'd like, and then I enjoy just experimenting with different kinds of Morse code keys. So I've always got a contest that I've got my eyes on, and I'm thinking about, I'm preparing for. Right now, it's the North American QSO Party, which is this weekend. But about this time last year, I was getting geared up for the South Carolina QSO Party. And as Murphy would have it, the night before, one of my middle daughters ended up having to go in the hospital in Columbia. So she's fine now, no big deal. The problem she had resolved itself on its own, but we were there for 4 days, and needless to say, I missed this. So, and just FYI, as a family, we joke around a lot. So this is about 2 a.m. Saturday morning, and I'm just trying to cut up with her and pick on her a little bit just to distract her from what was going on. But everything's fine. But anyway, so after that, things settled down, and I asked myself, all right, well, what's next? We missed this, or I missed this, and so what am I going to go after next? And I knew the Georgia QSO Party was coming up. I'm right next door. Should I go and operate portable? And honestly, I almost didn't do it. There's a lot to solve for portable operations. I'd never done it before. So you got to figure out your rig, antenna, power source, locations. In the Georgia QSO Party, you have to do a minimum of 2 counties. That adds a layer of complexity. But I looked at the prior year results. There wasn't a lot of CW activity. So I said, okay, let's do it. And I remember I'm driving to Columbus, Georgia one night. I'm pondering this. It's about a 4-hour drive. I finally decided to do it, and then I'm getting my game plan together, and I get to Columbus. It's about midnight, and then I remembered I've got a meeting once a year in April, and once again, as Murphy would have it, it's on that weekend. So that left me operating Sunday only, which I almost didn't do it for that reason, but I said, look, I like a challenge, and so we'll do it. So in terms of rigs, I mentioned I had to solve for a lot of different things. If you look at what other folks are using, it's a lot of different things. So N1RBD, this guy's a Georgia native, does a lot of parks on the air and summits on the air. He's got a lot of different rigs he uses, but this is really a minimalist rig. This is a mountain topper rig. Looks like he's feeding the end fed halfway. This is his power source. So not much to it. QRP rig, CW. AB6MV, he hauled a tube rig out into the field, running off a battery with what looks like an old word processor. I guess he's doing his logging there, but that's pretty wild. And then some folks have some really, really amazing setups. So WD3D, also a Georgia native. I think he drives a Toyota RAV4. He runs an FT891, which is a very common parks on the air rig. Which feeds an amplifier, 500-watt amplifier, which drives a hitch-mounted screwdriver antenna. So very, very serious setup. This in the POTA community would be called a hit-and-run setup. So you drive into a park, you spot yourself, make about 10 QSOs, and then you move on to the next park. In the Georgia QSO Party, this would really be a mobile rig, but it's interesting what some folks do. And then finally, W4WKU. I can't remember his name. This was one of my first contacts ever after getting licensed. This guy got an old TV truck, mounted a hex beam to the mast on it, and works very well. We talked about 2 hours one night on sideband. He's a great guy. So ultimately, I decided I'm just going to take my home station out into the field. I wasn't sure if I was going to do any of this again. And if you start doing the math on portable rigs, antennas, and bioenno batteries, it adds up quick. So got that out of the way, and then the next thing, and this was probably the hardest thing for me, was to design an antenna. So these were the criteria, just based on the fact I was going out for a contest. I wanted something that could do all bands, but was also a good performer. Since we were operating Sunday only, just looking back at the scores from the prior year, the folks who won the CW category didn't log any QSOs on 80 meters. And probably the reason for that is those antennas are big, they're huge, right? So, but I needed an edge since I was operating only 1 day. So I set out to design something that could work on 80 and ideally 160. I wanted something I could set up quickly. Again, changing parks in the middle of the action on Sunday. We're wasting time, tearing everything down, driving, setting back up. I didn't want to fool with trees or air cannons or any of that stuff. And then finally, again, since this is a contest, I wanted something that was easy to change bands on. So no link dipoles or resonant antennas. So ultimately, I went with, really in the POTA community, would probably be just absolutely ridiculous antenna, but 124-foot doublet and an inverted V on a painter's pole. I found a guy who used doublets for parks on the air. We talked back and forth online, and he said, look, you put that inside a bushel to make contact. So designed it, built it, set it up in the yard. This is it. It's a real painter's pole. If you look closely enough, it's got paint on it. I've actually used it as a painter's pole. 23 feet tall, and the tips of the wires are about 2 to 3 inches off the ground. So I set this thing up. I just laughed. I was like, there's no way this is going to work. But I set it up, got everything hooked up, and figured I would hunt some parks on the air stations on CW, and I was able to complete QSOs with every station I could hear. So very encouraging. This was on a Sunday. The slow speed test is Sunday night. It's a great event if you're trying to learn to run or activate parks on the air stations on CW. It's great practice. And so I said, all right, well, I'm going to operate in that. We'll see what my rates are. I'll compare them to my home station, and they're very similar, a little bit less, but not much. And so, all right, everything works. Let's go out to Aiken State Park the following weekend and set everything up. And these are the views, and you don't get these kinds of views in the shack. It's a beautiful day. Weather is about 60 degrees. I took 4 of my kids out there. Just stunning. You can see the shelter here, antenna set up here, actually had our own little private bathroom, and we had a great time. This is my son playing in the spillway, and it's just a blast. And again, this is why I sort of limit my time in terms of the contests that I do. Just working a lot and having so many kids, it's hard to spend 20 or 30 hours on the radio in a given weekend. All right, so more views. This is my daughter. She's got a skin knee. She's angry, trying to stay angry, and I cut up with her a little bit and give her a break character. She was having a good time. Skint knees are better than screens. And then this is 3 of my kids out catching minnows. So again, you don't get that in the shack. We just had a great time. So this is our map for the day. Green is CW, red is sideband. So I did all the CW operating. My kids hunted some parks on the air stations on sideband when I was taking breaks. And you can see we're getting out good. We're down into Puerto Rico, Canada, and all the way out to the West Coast on sideband. So this thing's working pretty good. So now the only thing we got to solve for is where we're going to go. And these are the criteria I looked at. So ideally, rarest counties, no permanent ops. I knew Andy was in Richmond County, so I didn't want to go there and compete for QSOs with him. Ideally, no rover ops, although they're kind of everywhere. We wanted state parks. You get kind of a double dip. You get POTA hunters, and then you get folks who are participating in the contest. In the case of the Georgia QSO party, the exchanges are compatible. It's not like California QSO party where you've got serial number exchanges that might get a little bit complicated. Shelters that can be reserved, didn't want to show up and have to find a spot to operate. For me, just a short distance from where I live. I got home at midnight the night before. Short distances between parks, again, because we're switching while the contest is going. So we're kind of wasting time. We did some dry runs just to test to see how much time it took us to tear things down, drive, set back up. And then cell signal to allow for self-spotting. So that's allowed by both the Georgia QSO party and Parks on the Air. Parks on the Air has this great thing where if you're going to be in a park that doesn't have cell service, you can go into their website ahead of time. You put the dates and times where you're going to be there, what park, and then when you get there and you call CQ and you get picked up by the RBN, the Parks on the Air website will spot you on their website. So it's kind of a neat feature, but we still wanted the option to self-spot on the QSO party website. So these are the parks we went with. Elijah Clark, which is in Lincoln County, that's on the Savannah River, the Mistletoe, which is on Clarksville in Columbia County. This is about 30 minutes before the contest was supposed to start. So you guys can see just beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. Sunday morning, it was a little bit cold, about 40 degrees, but otherwise just, awesome. I took my older son with me. He went fishing. He was all proud of himself. I've got my fishing rod, tackle box, bait, license, everything. I'm all set. We get to about here on this bridge, which goes between South Carolina and Georgia. And I asked him, I said, did you get a South Carolina license or a Georgia license? He said, I got a South Carolina license. And I said, all right, well, it's too late to fix that. We're just going to roll with it, keep our fingers crossed. We probably won't get in trouble. It'll be fine. Just remember that here for a second. So we get set up. Self spot, call CQ, we start logging QSOs, and then immediately we're getting errors. And anybody who's operating a QSO party knows, and most of you guys probably have, if you're in state, your multipliers are states. If you're out of states, your multipliers are counties. Well, N1MM didn't know I drove into Georgia, and so we had to stop and figure this out. And it's this screen and N1MM edit station information. You have to go in here and change the state and then restart everything. Everything works. So we got all that fixed, went back, spotted a game called CQ. Everything's cruising along great for about an hour. And then sure enough, the game warden shows up and goes right to my son. And Murphy's just striking right and left. But we broke down, went to the next park. I told my son, look, I'll cover the ticket, whatever it costs. You know, you did your best. And evidently there's a reciprocity agreement between the two states on the Savannah River. Either license counts on either side, so for crisis averted. So next we went to Mistletoe. This was our shelter, much bigger peninsula out into Lake Clark's Hill here. Just great operating location. By then it had warmed up, so coats are coming off. And actually, when I told the family I was going to go do this, I was going to take my son. He was going to go fishing, but everybody decided they wanted to go. Everybody, all 8 family members. So this is my wife chilling by the lake, just enjoying a Sunday afternoon. So everybody had just a wonderful time. So these were the final results: 173 QSOs of the first part, 293 of the second. We got a lot of DX stations who called, which was surprising. I didn't expect that. I'm sure that was due to their stations and not mine. I think our longest DX contact was LY5W in Lithuania. This is the breakdown. So 121 on 20 meters, 303 on 40. Didn't have a lot of time to operate on 80 meters on Sunday just because the contest ends right around sunset. But we had just a monster pile up in the final minutes. And then we did score 1 on 160 meters, K4 FMI in North Carolina. He was a Parks on the Air hunter. If you guys did the math, my antenna is about a quarter wave on 160 meters. So it's really, really kind of a dummy load. It doesn't work that great, but we can say we did it. And this is the final map. So we're coming to the end of this. I'll just say that, you know, it was for me, you know, being new to ham radio and just contesting and Parks on the Air and everything, it was a lot to solve for, but really kind of solving for all those things and getting our, you know, strategy squared away. That was 80% of the fun. And then just being able to go out, operate, you know, in the outdoors, in the sunshine, you know, clear blue sky. I mean, it really is kind of a surreal experience. It's hard to describe, but it was a great time. And then having the family out there with me as well. You know, again, there is some guilt, you know, in these longer contests, but they were having a great time, and I was having a great time because they were having a great time, and just everybody won. So ton of fun, and that's it for me. So I think, let's see, right about 16 minutes. So anyway, that's it. Thanks, guys. Turn it back over to Andy.
Burton, thank you. That was phenomenal. And I'm sure there will be many questions for you in a few minutes. I mean, I'll just for now, just reiterate the, you know, Burton's been licensed since 2021, and he won the CW plaque for the Georgia QSO party. So that, I mean, that's a phenomenal, and I'm real proud of him in any case. All right, but I'm sure there'll be questions for you in a minute. At this point, let me turn it over to Steve A. for TI, who has a lot of experience, both portable operating and contesting, has been licensed longer than Burton, and has also played in a lot of state QSO parties. Steve, the floor is yours.
All right, gents, thank you very much, and ladies as well, for having me on. You know, I want to take a little bit different tact at you know, at the discussion, but I'll start out, you know, like everyone else, a little bit about me. I was first licensed in 1964. And yes, I am that old. So there was a few years that I did not operate when I was chasing girls, and I caught one and got married and started having a family. And then my son, when he got to be about 8 or 9 years old, decided that he and I needed to get into ham radio. And why he decided that, I don't know, but that was back in the 80s, and I've been at it hot and heavy ever since then again. Anyway, I think the first portable operation that I ever went on was in 1967. I was a senior in high school, and I went to West Virginia with a couple of ham buddies, and we camped out on top of a mountain, and we strung up a couple of dipoles. We had all tube type equipment. We had a generator that was almost as big as the Opel Kadett that I was dragging it around in. And we had a wonderful field day up there, at least until one of the fellows had an issue with nature calling, and he decided to go in a hollow tree stump that was beneath the cherry tree. And after he was done with his business, he poured about a half a gallon of white gasoline down the tree stump. And then he tossed a match in, and well, we had an instant poop cannon that shot poop, flames, and toilet paper into the cherry tree and burnt down the cherry tree. And needless to say, we were not invited back. I guess the point here, there are a couple of things. First off, whenever you go on a portable operation, make sure you've made provisions for when nature calls. That may be in an area where you can go into the trees, or it may be a nearby gas station or restaurant. And the other thing that this lesson taught us is you definitely want to be a good neighbor. When you do a portable operation on private property, leave it at least as good as you found it, and do not burn down the cherry tree. Unlike George Washington, he cut it, I burn it. Anyway, moving on. A couple of things that I wanted to bring up is, when you go portable, it's very similar to being mobile, but there's a couple of things that are different, the key things that are different. One is the way you power it. You're going to power it typically with a generator. And I highly recommend using the best quality generator you can buy. Some of these cheapy generators that you find in the big box stores or at Harbor Freight, they will give you 120 volts AC, but they're pretty dirty, and they're typically there's so much RF noise on them that it makes receive very difficult. One of the beauties of being portable is you're typically away from all of the man-made noise. You can be out in the woods, you can be up on top of a mountain. But if you bring a crummy generator with you, that just gives you all that man-made noise back into your signal, and makes it very difficult to do well. The other thing that's different about being portable than mobile is the antenna system. You can put up pretty much anything you want, but I found that there's a couple of things that you need to do. You want to determine what is your goal. What kind of operation do you want to have? Are you trying to get close in states, or are you trying to get all of the states? How high can you get the antenna? A dipole works quite well if you get it high enough. When you have a dipole that's 20 or 25 or 30 feet off the ground, typically it's got a very high angle of radiation, and it does well for states 1 or 2 away from you, but it's not much good as a nationwide antenna, and certainly not much of a DX performer. Verticals tend to be a little bit better because they're low angle of radiation, but a vertical, it's been said that that it operates equally bad in all directions. The truth of the matter is verticals work quite well, but they need a ground field to push against. So if you're going to use a vertical, you almost have to have some kind of radio system underneath it. What I do is I use a 33-foot telescoping mast with a 33-foot piece of wire going up into it. And I match it with a 1-to-1 current balun and put 4 ground radials out for 80 meters and 75 meters. I throw a base loading coil into the mix so that it'll tune up well. This is not a terribly resonant antenna. It's a little bit too short for 40, or too long for 40, and a little bit, they're way too long for 20, and way too short for 75 and 80. But it's a good compromise. But you're going to have to use an external tuner with this type of an antenna. The internal radio tuners just, they're not going to match the SWR. And I don't know, most folks, I think, understand this now, that the production radios, whether it's ICOM or Kenwood or Yaesu, the internal tuners are really more like fine tuning. About a 3-to-1 SWR is all they can handle. And with an antenna that I'm talking about, this multi-band vertical, there's places the SWR is 4 and 5-to-1. But having said that, it does work. It works very well. And it gives you a good low angle of radiation that you don't get with a low dipole. Now, if you can put a fan dipole up 60 or 70 feet in those tall Georgia pines, that's probably a different story. And I would like to try that sometime. Okay, let's move on to a couple other things. Let's see, I've got a couple of other notes here. Whenever you operate portable, one of the things that I like to do is play in the state QSO parties. And depending on the contest, sometimes you can run multiple county lines, sometimes you can't. In Georgia, you can't run 2 county lines at the same time. But last year, a rule was instituted that you can sit on a county line as long as you are splitting it with your equipment and your radio. You can work one county and then work the other county later. So that saves you from having to tear your setup down twice, for 2 counties. And I know in the GAQP, what I did last year is in almost all the counties that I operated on, I actually took my vertical and duct taped it to the county line sign and then ran radials out from there. And that way the antenna was absolutely, dead centered on the county line. I also recommend, if you're going to do county line operations, log your GPS coordinates, take a picture or 2 of the sign, the county line sign, and any other supportive information. I have gotten questioned a couple of times whether I was actually on a county line. In fact, last year I got questioned in Florida. Somebody told me that it was physically impossible to make 2,000 contacts in the Florida QSO party. Well, no, it's not physically impossible. I had the log and the log checked out and it was proven. But then they came back and said, we'd like to see the pictures of the county lines that, we think you were sitting at home. So, you get some sour grapes once in a while. If you have a good score, you have to be prepared for that. I typically work the state QSO parties. I've worked the last 3 years, I worked all but one. And I'd like to go out at least 4 or 5 times in states that are relatively close. But you need to do a lot of pre-planning. If you're going to go, for me to go to South Carolina, for example, I'll do the South Carolina and the North Carolina QSO parties. I'll go up typically on Thursday evening. I'll drive somewhere into South Carolina. And Friday during the day, I'll drive around to my proposed operating sites that I've researched and used Google Maps, Google Street Maps. And there's another program out called randymajors.org. He has county line maps on a Google overlay, and those are pretty nice. But on Friday, I'll go out and make sure I have permission at all my operating sites. Saturday then is the Georgia QSO party, or the South Carolina QSO party. And then on Sunday, we do the North Carolina QSO party. Anyway, one of the things too, when you're doing QSO parties, you need to have a plan. And by plan, I mean not just the where you're going to be and what counties you're going to operate in and where you're going to operate from, but you need to have an operating plan. What mode do you want to operate on? Do you want to operate CW? Do you want to operate phone? You want to do both? I personally spend most of my time on CW, but in QSO parties, it's probably 60-40 CW and 40% phone. But my plan is typically I start on 20 meters, work CW, and then go up to 20 phone, try to work 15. I'll take a shot at 10, and then occasionally get up to 40 during the day. Once we start getting up close to dark, 10 and 15 are no longer going to be very productive. So we'll go up to 40 and 80. With the Florida QSO party, we don't have 80 meters. We only have 10 through 40, which makes it a little bit of a challenge. We don't get a whole lot of in-state contacts in the Florida QSO party. Almost everything is out of state. But that is one of the stated goals of the Florida QSO party. Some of the states, the stated goal, it's almost like a private party, where the operators stay on 40 meters and 80 meters and even some 2-meter simplex. But that's that particular state QSO party's goal. And that's every QSO party has a different plan that we have to work with. Just a note about spotting networks, and this was brought up just briefly earlier. If you can operate CW, even if you're not planning on it, contest CW is a whole lot easier than rag chewing. And you can operate at just about any speed, and people will match your speed. Your computer's doing most of the work; it's doing all the sending unless, of course, you have to do a quick fill with your paddle. So really, you need to be able to copy a call, maybe a serial number, and if the guy's in state, the county he's in. But when you first start out on contesting in a state QSO party or any other contests like that, call CQ, because that will establish you on the reverse beacon network. Once you're spotted on the reverse beacon network, people know where to find you. Excuse me. Also, some of the QSO parties do not allow self-spotting, and they do not encourage spotting. Other QSO parties are trying to get as much activity as possible. So they do encourage self-spotting and spotting. You need to read the rules in any of the state QSO parties or any contest. Read the rules and make sure you understand them. There was one of the local ham clubs was talking about operating, I believe it was the NAQP, and they were planning on using they had 3 or 4 500-watt ALS amplifiers. And, someone said, don't think that's a good idea because you're limited to 100 watts. I think it was is that the North American QSO party that's limited?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was 4 guys that were all set to borrow the club's amps and let her rip. So obviously they had not read the rules. Also, whenever you're operating, especially in a state QSO party, give your call sign out. There's so many people, they get inundated with the pileup, and they just work one after another, and they don't give their call out. And when you're not giving your call repeatedly, a couple of things happen. First off, there's a lot more errors. The second thing that happens is, some of the other active contesters get bored and say, well, I'll come back, and maybe they do it, maybe they don't. And then you'll have a certain number of people that'll, they'll get on the mic and say, call sign, and that's just that much more QRM. So, my policies, I try to give it every time. But I think, if you give your call sign every other QSO, you're probably not going to have too much of a problem with that. How am I doing on time? I think I'm probably getting close, aren't I?
Yeah, you got like 3 or 4 more minutes, Steve.
Okay. I didn't really have a whole lot more. Let me take a look at my talking points here and see if there's anything else. I guess one of the things that I've been asked this a number of times is, what do you do for a station? And I have just taken a piece of plywood and cut it so that it fits perfectly into the passenger seat of the car. And I take an Icon 7300, an LDG AT600 tuner, a wind keyer, and say the power supply, and that's all attached using extra heavy wire ties down to that board, and then that board just sits in into between the cup holder and the side of the car. I've got a light on it. I've got another small shop light that hangs from the visor. And that's, by the way, if you're going to be doing it that way, you do need to make sure that you have some kind of light other than the car lights, because the dome lights do not work well with trying to read a keyboard and see the computer screen. But I park in the car, and operate, 10, 12 hours on a QSO party. And the only time I get out of that car seat is when nature calls, or I need to, switch bands on the antenna. And the only time I actually have to do anything to the antenna is 10 through 40. The tuner handles everything. On 80 and 75, the tuner still handles everything, but I have to put the base loading coil into the circuit. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it back.